I found it on a Sunday, buried beneath tax returns, expired coupons, and dust-covered birthday cards. A single, faded bank statement. Dad's name in blue ink on the corner. My sister's handwriting circled next to a transaction I never made. It had been 2 months since they stopped answering my calls. 3 months since I was last invited home. 6 since Mom's voice softened when she said my name. The story traveled faster than I could keep up with. I was stealing, they said, taking small amounts from their retirement fund, blaming market downturns, technical glitches, bad accounting. And like every quiet betrayal, it wasn't what they accused me of that hurt. It was how quickly they believed it. I didn't fight back. Didn't storm into the living room and demand answers. Didn't pull up my banking app and shove it in their faces. I just stopped showing up. Because sometimes the loudest argument is the one you never speak. But this statement, this single page of numbers and dates, it whispered something different. It showed money withdrawn from an account Dad never used, transferred quietly to an account under a different last name, my sister's married name. I sat on the edge of the guest bed in my apartment, the afternoon light splitting across the floor like thin glass. I could feel the weight of all the conversations I'd never had. The day I left home at 24. The night I skipped Thanksgiving because I couldn't take another passive-aggressive toast. The quiet way I let my family become strangers, so I wouldn't have to explain who I was, or what I wasn't. And now, they thought I was a thief. But I wasn't. I was something worse. Invisible. I stared at the statement for a long time. Long enough to hear my father's voice in my head, steady but distant. Trust is like glass. Once it cracks, you'll always see the line. I used to think he said that about the world. Now I realized he said it about us. I folded the paper carefully, slipped it into the manila envelope where it wouldn't be alone. Tomorrow, I'd decide whether to send it to them, or whether I'd keep living in this quiet exile, letting them believe whatever version of me made them sleep easier at night. But tonight, I just sat in the silence of a life I didn't steal, wondering how it ended up so far from where it started. The next morning, I couldn't leave it alone. I told myself to let it go, to let them believe what they wanted. But the numbers kept circling back in my head like an itch you can't scratch. I opened the statement again over my second cup of coffee. Same digits, same dates, same hollow feeling. But this time, I noticed something smaller. A line item labeled G Utilities Management. A $420 recurring withdrawal. But here's the thing. My parents' utilities had been paid directly from their joint account for 20 years. Dad had set it up to the county website after a winter freeze knocked out the power in '04. They didn't use third-party billers. They didn't trust them. I remember because he made a whole speech about it at the dinner table. So why was there a payment? To a company they'd never used. From an account Dad barely touched? I pulled out my phone, searched G Utilities Management. Nothing. No company. No listings. No billing site. Just a dead end. I sat back in my chair, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. Either Dad had changed everything about how he managed their finances, or someone was covering their tracks. And given how stubborn he was about his routine, I knew which was more likely. But doubt still crawled in like cold air under a door. What if I was wrong? What if grief had made them change things after all? What if they didn't tell me because I didn't deserve to know? I stared at the ceiling, letting those thoughts pass through like a slow storm. And then I opened my email. Typed out a message I wasn't sure I'd send. Dad, just noticed a strange charge on your old account. Wanted to make sure it's not fraud. Let me know if you wanted to look into it. No accusations. No defenses. Just a breadcrumb. I hovered over send for longer than I'd like to admit. Then closed the laptop. Didn't send it. Not yet. Sometimes it's easier to sit with the question, then face the answer you already know. I put the statement back in the envelope, but this time I placed it on the kitchen counter, instead of hiding it away, like it was waiting for something, or someone. I didn't hear her come in, just the soft thud of her backpack hitting the floor and the creak of the kitchen cabinet opening. Ella, 22, sharp as glass, careful as ice. My daughter, whether she admitted out loud these days or not, she poured herself coffee like it was her house. Because in some ways it still was. "You still drink this motor oil?" she asked, scrunching her nose. "It's cheaper than therapy," I said, a flicker of a smile. "Barely." She spotted the envelope on the counter before I could move it. "What's that?" "Old bank stuff." She gave me a look, the one that said she didn't buy my casual shrug for a second. "You finally going to tell me why Grandma stopped calling me back?" Her voice wasn't harsh, just tired, like someone who'd already filled in most of the blanks and was waiting to see if I confirmed them. I hesitated. She noticed. "It's nothing I can prove," I said, "but you're trying." Not a question, a fact. She walked over, set her mug down next to the envelope, tapping her fingernails against the paper without opening it. "You think it's Aunt Lisa, don't you?" I didn't answer. Didn't have to. Ella let out a breath. "You know she texted me last week. Told me not to worry about Grandma and Grandpa, that they're financially safe now." Like I was supposed to know what that meant. Her eyes finally met mine. Same shade as her mother's. Same way of holding disappointment, like a secret she'd learned too young. "Why didn't you tell me?" The words were small, not angry. Just there, waiting. "Because I didn't want you to think less of your family." I paused. Or of me. She didn't respond for a while. Then picked up the envelope. Didn't open it. Just turned it over in her hands. "You know I minored in accounting, right?" "Yeah." "Let me look." I hesitated, then slid the envelope across the counter. A quiet transfer of trust one should have offered sooner. She tucked it into her bag like it was an ordinary day, like Betrayal could fit neatly between textbooks and earbuds. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. And for the first time in a long while, I believed she actually would. After she left, the apartment felt too still. No TV, no noise from upstairs. Just the quiet hum of the fridge and the soft click of the front door settling into its frame. The envelope was gone, but its weight still pressed on the counter. Or maybe on me. I sat down at the table, stared at the empty coffee mug. There was nothing heroic about being silent. Nothing noble in letting people believe the worst about you. Just because you didn't want to make a scene. But that's how I was raised. Not to air out pain. Not to chase after explanations. You let people think what they want, and you carry the cost like a good man's burden. I thought about the night Mom called, voice sharp but trembling. "We just need some space right now, Marcus. This has been disappointing." No details. Just distance. That was 6 weeks ago. I haven't heard from them since. I could have defended myself. Could have sent bank records, timestamps, old emails. But some part of me thought, maybe I'd earned it. Not the accusation, but the doubt. Because I left. Because I didn't show up for birthdays or anniversaries. Didn't visit enough. Didn't call when Dad had surgery. Didn't apologize when I missed Christmas. I thought distance would protect me from becoming the version of myself I saw in them. Turns out, it just made me easy to replace. I rubbed my hand over my face, the stubble rough against my palm. There were so many times I could have said something. Anything. To Mom. To Ella. To Lisa. Even before she built whatever story she needed them to believe. But I didn't. And now the silence wasn't noble. It was just empty. I whispered something, almost without thinking. I let her write my part of the story. The words barely left my lips, but they were real, and they stung. It wasn't about money anymore, or even clearing my name. It was about not letting that silence be the only thing they remember me for. I stood up, washed the mug, wiped the counter where the envelope had been, then turned off the kitchen light. Sometimes you don't fight back in the moment. You just wait for someone to come back, holding what you couldn't carry on your own. Ella called the next afternoon. No small talk. "You sitting down?" I was. "Didn't say so." I pulled the statements. Cross-referenced them with the payment logs you gave me. A pause. I could hear papers shuffling on her end. Dad's account made monthly payments to G, Utilities Management, for over a year. Right. But get this, G utilities management, isn't real. It's a DBA under a personal checking account. I sat forward. Whose? Silence. Then, Lisa, her married name. Opened it 2 years ago. Registered in a P.O. box 3 towns over. I closed my eyes. It wasn't shock. It wasn't rage. It was a strange relief of no longer being crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't making this up. It was real. How sure are you? I asked. 99%. Unless there's another Lisa Marie Thompson born on Dad's birthday, who happens to be funneling money from your parents' account through a fake company. Her voice was calm but sharp, like glass in soft light. I didn't know she was capable of this, Ella added, softer now. You didn't grow up with her the way I did. I stood and walked to the window. The neighborhood was quiet. Birds on the wires. A neighbor pulling weeds. It felt wrong. How normal the world looked, while something so crooked lived inside your own bloodline. What now? Ella asked. I didn't have the full answer, but I knew step one. Send me the file, and back it up somewhere safe. Already done. Don't tell Grandma and Grandpa yet. She hesitated. Why? Because if we confront her without a plan, she'll spin it. Turn this into another story about me being bitter, about me lying. A long pause. Okay, she said, but I want to be there when you tell them. That surprised me, but it also didn't. The truth was out now. Not loud, not public, but enough to breathe the first time. I looked at my reflection in the window, tired, older than I remembered, but not invisible. Not anymore. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't start big. It starts small. A borrowed 20 that doesn't get repaid. A story that doesn't quite line up. And if you're like me, you tell yourself it's not worth fighting over. Until one day it is. I remember the first time I caught Lisa lying about money. She was 17. Dad had given me his old ledger to help balance the house accounts while he recovered from knee surgery. I found a withdrawal missing a receipt. $200 gone from a grocery fund. When I asked Lisa, she laughed. Oh, please. You probably just forgot to write it down. She was confident, too confident, but I didn't push. Didn't want to start a fight during Dad's recovery. Didn't want to be the bad guy in a house already tired from hospital visits and unpaid bills. So I let it go. A week later, I found the shopping bags in her closet, clothes with the tags still on. I didn't say a word, and in my silence, something shifted between us. She learned that I could be quieted, that I was easier to ignore than to confront. I thought I was keeping the peace, but what I was really doing was surrendering the truth, before it even had a chance to stand. Years passed, and I told myself she'd grow out of it, that it was teenage impulse, not character. But then came the Christmas she offered to help Dad with the bills. The birthday when she volunteered to open the family joint account for easier access. The summer when Mom mentioned offhand how Lisa was finally responsible, and I smiled, nodded, kept my mouth shut, because saying something would have made me the bitter brother, the one who couldn't let the past go, the troublemaker in a family that loved pretending everything was fine. And now here I was, 49 years old, staring down a bank transfer trail that started with a missing grocery receipt and ended with a forged company name. I rubbed my thumb over the edge of the window frame, felt the chip paint, felt every year I let slide by because I was too tired to argue. This wasn't just Lisa's doing. It was mine too, my silence, my retreat, but not this time. This time, the numbers had faces. The proof had a voice, and I wasn't walking away from it again. That night, Ella came back with 2 folders, one full of printouts and transaction records. The other, quiet questions she hadn't asked until now. She set them both on the kitchen table and sat across from me, silent, waiting. I looked at the folders, then at her, then finally spoke the thing I hadn't said out loud in years. You know why I left home so young? She shrugged lightly. I figured you didn't want to deal with them. Partly. I leaned back, fingers drumming the edge of my coffee cup. I left because I was tired of earning their trust every single day. and never once feeling like I'd kept it. She blinked, quiet, sharp. I thought you left because you didn't care enough to stay. I let that sit, because it was true in part, but not the way she meant. There's a difference between leaving because you don't care and leaving because you're tired of proving that you do. She looked down, fiddled with the edge of the folder. Lisa never had to prove anything. They just believed her. I smiled thin. Lisa was smart. She told them what they wanted to hear. I just told them the truth. And they didn't want it. No, they didn't. The room stayed still for a while. No fan blowing. No cars passing outside. Just two people sitting in the gap where trust used to be. "So what are you going to do now?" she asked. I exhaled slow. "I'm going to stop letting my absence tell the story." She pushed a folder of records toward me. "Then start with this." Her words weren't an invitation. They were a handoff. Same as the one I'd given her days ago. She was stronger than I'd been at her age. Or maybe just less tired. I opened the folder. Looked at the numbers. The dates. The truth I'd buried for years under the hope that someone else would finally say it first. But this time it would be my voice. Even if it shook. Even if it was too late to fix what broke between us. It wasn't too late. To tell the truth while I still had it. The next day, I called the only person I thought might still care about the numbers, not the drama. Harold Brenner, Dad's accountant for almost 25 years. Retired now. Lived alone with his crossword puzzles and an ancient golden retriever named Sam. He'd picked up on the second ring. Marcus Carter. Been a few years. Too many. A pause. No pleasantries. Just breath and memory filling the space. "What do you need?" "I need you to look at something." He met me at the diner 2 towns over. Wore the same faded windbreaker and wireframe glasses I remembered from high school. We ordered coffee and sat by the window like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. I slid the folder across the table. Watched him open it, eyes scanning faster than I expected for a man pushing 70. He didn't flinch, didn't frown, just set his cup down and said, "That's not your father's account." I nodded. "Lisa opened it 2 years ago under a DBA. Money's been moving quietly ever since." He closed the folder, tapped his fingers on the tabletop. "How much do you want to burn this bridge, Marcus?" "It's not about burning it. It's about not letting it collapse with me under it." Harold let out a low whistle. "They won't thank you for this. Even if it's true, I'm not doing it for thanks." Another pause. Then he leaned back. "You have enough here to trigger a review. Probate court, if it touches the estate. Maybe elder fraud, depending on the DA. You think I should go that far?" He studied me, calm and tired. "That depends. You trying to protect your parents or punish your sister?" The question sat there between us. Sharp. True. I swallowed hard. "I'm trying to stop this from happening again. To anyone." Harold gave a slow nod. "The kind you give when you know a man's already made his decision. I'll draft a formal statement. Back up your timeline with the financials. But this," he tapped the folder, "this doesn't end clean. Nothing worth fixing ever does." He smiled then. Small. Sad. "You sound like your father when he wasn't trying to be liked." I folded the folder shut. Maybe it's time I stopped trying too. Sam whined under the table. Harold scratched his head without looking down. "You've got 48 hours before the next billing cycle hits. If she's smart, she'll move the money by then. Then we move first." I drove home with the folder sitting on the passenger seat, as heavy as a confession. The sun was going down when I walked through the door. Ella was already there, laptop open, phone charging, earbuds half hanging from her sweatshirt. She didn't look up. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough." I set the folder on the table between us. She closed the laptop slowly, like she already knew what came next. "You want me to give this to Grandpa?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I want you to decide who should see it." She frowned. "Why me?" "Because your mom would have told me to fix it myself. And Lisa would have told me to leave it alone. And what do you want me to do?" I looked at her, steady. "I want you to do what you think is right. even if it costs us the comfort of pretending it didn't happen. She stared at the folder, ran her fingers across the worn manila edge. I could see the war in her eyes. Family loyalty versus the truth too loud to ignore. The same war I'd lost for years by choosing silence. This shouldn't be my choice, she whispered. Maybe not, but you're the only one who'll make it clean. She exhaled, slow, the kind of breath you take when you know childhood's officially over. Then she slid the folder into her bag. Didn't promise anything. Didn't declare a plan. But the action said enough. Tomorrow's Sunday, she said, voice low. Grandma and Grandpa always go over Bill's Sunday morning. I'll stop by before then. Alone. At first. She stood, grabbed her jacket, and paused at the door. If this goes bad, if they hate me for this. I shook my head. They won't hate you. They'll hate that someone told the truth before they were ready to hear it. She half smiled, tired. That's not really better. No, but it's honest. The door clicked shut behind her. The house felt hollow without the folder sitting there, but also lighter, like the story was finally out of my hands. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like closure, but it felt like enough. For now. Sunday morning, Ella drove across town alone. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned after a long week. She pulled up to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Same brick porch, same blue hydrangeas, same cracked driveway she used a racer bike on. But today, the house felt smaller. Or maybe she'd finally grown into someone who no longer fit inside its easy lies. She let herself in, as always, found him in the kitchen, coffee brewing, Dad's old ledger spread open on the table. Grandma smiled first. Look who's up early. Grandpa barely glanced up from his checkbook. Everything all right, honey? Ella set the folder on the table between them. Didn't sit. Didn't smile. I need you to look at this. The room cooled instantly. Grandma's smile faded, careful and slow. Grandpa pushed his glasses higher on his nose. What's this about? The account. The withdrawals. The business name that doesn't exist. She tapped the folder but didn't open it. Let them do that. Let them make the choice to see or not see. For a long time, no one moved. Then Grandma sighed, soft but deep. Your father put you up to this, didn't he? Ella didn't flinch. No. He asked me to do what I thought was right. So I did. Grandpa finally opened the folder. Eyes scanned the statements. Lips tightened, but his hand stayed steady. After a few pages, he stopped, took off his glasses. Lisa? His voice broke around the name. Small, almost a question. Grandma shook her head, refusing to look at the papers. There must be an explanation. She's always been so helpful. Ella softened just enough. Sometimes helpful people hide things better. The clock ticked in the background. The coffee machine hissed. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Grandpa finally spoke. We'll talk to her. No, Ella said, gentle but firm. You'll decide what to do with the truth before she tells you a lie about it. They both looked at her then. Really looked. Not like a child. Not like Marcus's daughter. But like someone who'd stepped out from behind the quiet and carried the weight they couldn't. She left the folder there. Didn't wait for thanks. Didn't wait for forgiveness. Just walked back out into the morning light, the door closing soft behind her. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was leaving the house. She felt like she was finally walking home. Ella called me from the car. They didn't deny it. They didn't accept it either. What did they say? Nothing that mattered. They're still deciding if losing Lisa hurts less than losing their illusion of her. I closed my eyes. That's about what I expected. We didn't have time to wait for them to find their courage. Harold had given us 48 hours. Lisa was smart. If she caught wind of this, she'd wipe the account clean before Sunday night. I opened my laptop, logged into the state business registry, typed in G Utilities Management. Inactive, never legally registered. No tax ID, no filings. Classic shell. I drafted an email to Harold. Confirmed no legal business registration. Account linked to a personal SSN under Lisa's married name. Fraud probability high. What next? He replied in 10 minutes, as efficient as ever. Submit the full report to the probate judge. If it involves joint family funds, the estate hearing will trigger mandatory review. I'll file the motion. You need to draft your personal statement by morning. Personal statement. The last thing I wanted to write, but maybe the only thing I still owed them. Ella texted a few minutes later. Mom says Lisa called. She's coming over tomorrow. I stared at the message. Tomorrow. That meant we had hours, not days. Tell Mom to stall her. Coffee, errands, anything. I'll file the motion first thing in the morning. You sure? No, but waiting won't make me surer. I pulled the old notebook Dad used to keep his account passwords. Found his original handwritten signature in the back. Scanned it. Labeled the file. Original _signature _1998. That alone wouldn't prove everything, but would prove he had nothing to do with the recent transfers. Before midnight, I had the statement half written. It wasn't pretty. It was tired, but it was honest. I, Marcus Carter, contest the validity of the financial actions taken on behalf of my parents' estate. I submit evidence that funds were removed under false pretenses and without their informed consent. Dry, but enough. Tomorrow, Harold would clean it up, submit it to the court, and then it wouldn't be about family anymore. It would be about law. I shut the laptop, sat in the dark kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel powerless, just prepared. By morning, the air felt tighter, not colder, just thinner, like the day was already running out of room. I emailed the final statement to Harold at 7:12 a.m. He filed it by 7:45. Hearing set for Monday morning. His message read, if she moves the fund before then, we'll need to file an emergency freeze order. Keep eyes open. That gave us less than 2 days. And Lisa was coming over in 4 hours. I texted Ella. Any sign of her yet? Not yet. Grandma just put banana bread in the oven. Classic distraction technique. I smiled despite myself. Even in chaos, some traditions stayed intact. By 9 a.m., I pulled up the joint bank account login. Password still worked. Dad never changed it from Wolves 97, a tribute to his high school mascot. The kind of password no hacker would guess, but every Carter knew. I watched the account in real time. No withdrawals yet, but the automatic transfer to G Utilities Management was scheduled for 3 p.m. If Lisa logged in before then, she'd see the balance frozen from court order by Monday. If she pulled the money before the freeze, we'd have to trace where it went. Every second felt like glass cracking beneath my feet. At 11:20, Ella called. She just pulled into the driveway. I could hear the nerves in her voice. Tight but steady. Take a deep breath. Let her talk first. And what if she asks why you're not here? Tell her I'm where I've always been, which is watching. The line went quiet. Then she said, softer, you're not alone in this, Dad. Not anymore. For a second, I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Some silences don't need filling. I refreshed the account at noon. Still intact. But every hour felt like borrowed time. Lisa could drain it in minutes. All it took was one login, one wire transfer, one story told to cover her tracks. But this time, she wasn't the only one watching. By 1:30, Harold texted. Court confirmed receipt. Status review scheduled Sunday midnight to trigger Monday's freeze. The countdown wasn't waiting for her. It was waiting for me to decide if I still had the stomach to finish this. And I did, whether they forgave me or not. I sat by the window as the afternoon light shifted across the floor. Hands quiet, mind loud. Dad used to say, trust is like glass. Once it cracks, you'll always see the line. When I was a kid, I thought he meant the world. When I was a teenager, I thought he meant me. And now I realize maybe he meant himself. The line was always there. We just spent a lifetime pretending it wasn't. At 2:15, Ella called again. She's in the living room, laughing, making coffee like nothing's wrong. That's her way. She'll tell a prettier story before she ever admits a hard one. They're eating it up, Dad. like nothing's changed. I close my eyes, then ask her one thing. What? Ask her who paid the electric bill last month. Silence. Then, got it. I waited, watched the clock slide toward 3 o'clock. At 2:46, my phone buzzed. A text from Ella. She lied. Said Grandpa set up autopay last fall. I checked the utility account. Still under G Utilities. I showed them the receipt from the fake business name. They're quiet now. Quiet is how it starts. Quiet is how it breaks. Then another message. Grandma cried. Grandpa said, I guess the crack was there all along. Dad's words. But this time spoken by the man who taught them. And finally heard by someone who wasn't me. I let out a long breath. The 3 o'clock transfer hit the account. But it wasn't to G Utilities this time. It was stopped. Frozen. Lisa hadn't logged in. Or maybe she had. But she was too busy spinning stories to see the ground shifting under her. At 3:10, Ella texted again. She left. Slammed the door. No goodbye. You okay? I asked. Not really, but clear. I smiled. Clear is enough. I stood and stretched, the afternoon light warming my face. For the first time in years, Dad's old line didn't feel like a weight on my back. It felt like a choice. Trust is like glass, and sometimes you let it crack, because pretending it's whole doesn't make it so. I arrived 20 minutes later. Didn't rush. Didn't rehearse. I found them at the kitchen table. Same table where birthday candles once burned and report cards were debated. But today, no celebrations. Just a quiet weight of what they finally saw. The folder sat open between them. Grandma wiped her glasses, her hands shaking the way sorrow always makes them. Grandpa stared at the numbers like they were written in another language. I sat down across from them, waited. No one spoke first. So I did. You believe me now? The question hung there, dry but soft. Grandma cleared her throat. It's not about believing, Marcus. It's about what we let ourselves ignore. Grandpa nodded, slow. She's been taking care of us for so long, we didn't want to think she could take something, too. I let out a breath that felt like it had waited years to leave. She did both. That's what makes it complicated. No one defended her. Not anymore. But no one condemned her either. And somehow that fell harder. I tapped the ledger. Dad taught me to watch the numbers. I should have spoken up years ago. I didn't. Grandpa finally met my eyes. We wouldn't have heard you back then. That was the closest we would ever get to an apology, and I accepted it for what it was. Grandma folded her hands. So what happens now? I kept my voice steady. The court reviews the transfers. The estate freezes any questionable activity. If she fights it, the law steps in. And if she runs? I looked down at the papers. Then she's been gone longer than we thought. The wind pushed against the kitchen window, rattling it like an old regret. Grandma stood, reached for the ledger, held it like something both precious and broken. Stay for dinner? She asked, voice small. I smiled. Small, but real. If you'll have me. We didn't hug, didn't cry, just started peeling potatoes, like it was another Sunday. But this time, there was room at the table for the truth, even if it sat quietly between us. Dinner came together like it always had. Quiet hands, unspoken rhythms. Grandma set the table. Grandpa chopped carrots. I stirred the sauce while watching the steam curl like old ghosts leaving the room. We didn't talk about Lisa. We didn't talk about me. But the silence wasn't sharp this time. It was tired and gentle. At one point, Grandma opened a cabinet for the serving bowls. The same chipped porcelain ones we'd used since I was a boy. She paused. Reached to the top shelf where we kept the fancy dishes, the ones for guests' holidays or rare occasions. She pulled them down without a word, set them on the table. For me, it wasn't much. No speech, no apology, just a quiet decision. That tonight, I wasn't outsider anymore. I wiped my hands on a towel and smiled. Small, but enough. Grandpa poured iced tea for all of us. even though he knew I preferred water. Some habits don't break overnight. I didn't correct him. Didn't need to. We sat, passed the plates, said grace like we always had. But this time, when they said amen, it didn't feel like a pause before it turned into the story we'd rehearsed for years. It felt like a full stop, and maybe a new sentence. After dinner, Grandma handed me the leftover container without asking if I wanted it. She just packed it, just in case. The same way she used to when I drove back to college in the rain. I took it, because saying no would have broken whatever small bridge we'd managed to build in that kitchen. As I slipped on my jacket, she stopped me at the door. Didn't hug me, didn't say I'm sorry. Just pressed a folded grocery receipt into my palm. Found this in the ledger, she said. Your handwriting. From the year you paid our electric bill, without telling us. I opened it. Faded numbers. My teenage scrawl. Proof that I had always been there, even when they didn't see it. Guess you've been keeping us afloat longer than we thought, she whispered. I couldn't answer. So I didn't. Sometimes the quiet things. Say enough. I walked to the car with the grocery receipt folded in my palm. Didn't open it again. Didn't need to. Some truths don't have to be spoken twice to be real. The street was quiet, porch lights blinking on one by one. It was the kind of stillness I used to hate, reminding me how far I drifted from this place. But tonight, it didn't feel like distance. It felt like peace. I sat behind the wheel, stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Older now, softer in some places, sharper in others, but still here, still me. I thought about Lisa, where she was now, probably rewriting the story, casting herself as the misunderstood daughter, who only did what she had to. And maybe in her mind that was true, but it didn't change what she took, or what she broke. The difference now was, I wasn't holding that weight anymore. I had done what I came to do, not to punish her, not to clear my name, but to stop the story from ending in silence. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone, not even to myself. I turned the ignition, let the engine hum steady in the quiet street. The leftover container sat on the passenger seat, the grocery receipt tucked into my coat pocket. Both small, ordinary things. But together, they told a story no accusation or apology ever could. A story where a boy once paid the electric bill, and a man finally stopped paying for the silence. I didn't know what tomorrow's hearing would bring. Maybe questions, maybe headlines, maybe more silence. But tonight, the fight was done, and that was enough. I drove home slow, windows cracked to let the night in, letting it remind me, sometimes you lose the people you thought you couldn't live without, but you find yourself in the quiet they leave behind. Morning came slow, the kind of slow where the clock ticks but no one's chasing it. I woke before the alarm, sunlight edging to the blinds like an old friend who forgot they weren't speaking to me. The kitchen felt empty without the tension. No unopened envelopes. No printed statements waiting on the counter. Just a leftover container from Grandma, still in the fridge, and the folded grocery receipt resting by the keys. I poured coffee. Black. No cream. Let it sit too long before I remember to drink it. Some habits stay stubborn. I checked my phone. No calls from Lisa. No threats. No apologies. Silence sometimes speaks louder than any confrontation. Ella texted just after 7. They're awake. No word from Lisa. Grandpa says he's going to call the attorney today. Good, I replied. Let him own this part of the story. She sent a thumbs-up emoji. Her generation's way of saying, we're not done, but we're okay for now. I sat at the kitchen table, where I'd once scribbled math homework and unpaid bills. Same chair, different man. The court hearing was scheduled for 10. Harold would meet me there with the files. Daniel, the probate clerk, already flagged the account for review. It would be quiet, procedural, but it would matter. I looked at the grocery receipt one more time before tucking it into my wallet. Not for evidence, for memory. Because sometimes the proof we need most is that we were never as invisible as we felt. I left the leftover container where it was. Something about having a meal waiting at home felt settled, As I grabbed my coat, I paused by the door, listened to the stillness. No last-minute doubts. No what-ifs. Just a man walking out the door because it was time. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't running from something. I was walking toward it. The courthouse was colder than I remembered. Not the air, the walls. The way voices bounce around like they didn't belong to anyone. I sat on the bench outside courtroom 3. Harold beside me, sorting papers with the kind of calm only a man with nothing left to prove can carry. Ella showed up 15 minutes early. Coffee in one hand, folder in the other. No nerves showing, at least not where anyone could see. She sat beside me, handed me the coffee. Black, no cream, like always. I smiled. Small. Real. Did you sleep? I asked. Enough. Her voice sounded steady. Clear. I wondered if I ever sounded like that at her age. Probably not. The bailiff opened the courtroom doors. Carter, Marcus. Brenner, Harold. Carter, Ella. We stood. Ella fell and stepped beside me. No hesitation. Inside, the judge flipped through the file, without looking at us yet. Then he asked the question I'd been waiting for. Who is presenting this challenge on behalf of the family? I opened my mouth, but Ella spoke first. We are, Your Honor. Jointly. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. Her voice filled the room in a way mine never did. Not loud, not sharp, just present. The way my father's never was. The way I wish mine had been. The judge nodded, finally looking up. Proceed. Harold handed over the evidence. I placed a statement on record. Ella presented the timeline. Dates, accounts, transfers, clean, precise. I sat back and watched her work. Watched her carry what I once thought I had to shoulder alone. And I saw something I hadn't expected. Pride and peace. Not because she was fighting for me, but because she wasn't fighting against herself to be heard. After we finished, the judge called for a recess. Review scheduled for the next morning. Nothing dramatic. No verdict yet. But enough. Enough to stop pretending it never happened. Outside the courtroom, Ella handed me the grocery receipt. You dropped this. I took it, smiled. Thanks for carrying the other stuff. She shrugged. You taught me how, even when you thought you didn't. And there it was. The reflection. The echo. Clear as glass. Sunday night, I stopped by the house. The lights were low. Quiet again. Not cold, but softer, like the house itself was exhaling. Grandpa sat at the kitchen table. The old family ledger open beside him. He didn't look up when I walked in. You did good today, son. It caught me off guard. Not the words, the ease with which he said them. I set the grocery receipt beside the ledger. He smiled faintly. Still holding on to that thing, huh? Maybe it's time it stays here where it belongs. He folded the receipt and tucked it between the ledger pages. Closed the cover. No ceremony. Just done. Grandma appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. No banana bread this time. Just a warm seat waiting. We sat together for a while. No one filled the silence. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full. Before I left, Grandpa said one more thing. Ella stopped by earlier. Yeah. Told me she's setting up automatic payments for us. From our real account this time. I smiled. She's smarter than me. No, she's what comes next. That stayed with me. On my way out, I passed the living room where the family photos hung. There, tucked between an old black and white of my parents and a faded Christmas photo of Lisa and me, someone had slipped in a new picture. Ella, standing outside the courthouse, half smiling, tired but proud. No caption, no date, just there. Proof that the story didn't end where the crack first showed. Proof that some legacies don't come from what we leave behind. They come from who stays and what they carry forward. I pulled the door shut gently behind me, walked down the porch steps as the night settled quiet and calm. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the family's silence anymore. I'd handed it off and watched it turn into something else, something lighter. And maybe that's enough of a legacy for me. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment. No folders, no bank statements, no arguments waiting in the inbox. Just stillness, the kind I use a run from. I didn't check the court docket, didn't refresh the bank app. Tomorrow would bring what it brings. Tonight was for something else. I pulled out the grocery receipt one last time, not to study it, but to feel its weight one final time before letting it go. I placed it in the drawer by my bed, not as evidence, as a reminder that sometimes the things we do in silence still matter, even if no one notices them for years. I looked out the window at the street below. A kid on a bike, neighbors unloading groceries, a father walking his daughter home from the corner store. All the ordinary quiet things that build a life. The things we miss when we're too busy defending ourselves to live it. I used to think truth was a fight. Now I wonder if it's more like a seed. Something you plant quietly and trust to grow, even if you never see it bloom. Some stories end with clarity. Some just settle. I don't know what Lisa will say tomorrow. I don't know if Mom will ever fully forgive me. But I know this much. This time, the truth didn't die in the silence. It lived, if only for a while. If it were your story, would you have stayed silent or spoken, knowing they might never believe you?